everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, we're diving into the power of reinvention with my friend, Matt Meisner. And he is the author of The Paradox of Having Your Shit Together. His journey is raw, it's honest, it's a look at what happens when outward success no longer matches internal fulfillment. And Matt's story is choosing alignment, gratitude, and truth over expectations that one every day as an entrepreneur we experience. So let's get right into it. Matt, so glad that you joined us today. I wish it was in person, but this will do for now. So first of all, thank you for joining us. You have an amazing story.
Oh,
And
thank you.
you and I have spoken before, and I love everything about gratitude and what your journey symbolizes, not just for myself as a mom and as a family person, but you've taken it to a whole other extreme, which people, when they buy your book, will have they'll be able to experience what you've experienced, I think, pretty well. So I want to dive into a few challenging questions that I think will help other entrepreneurs get a grip on what's happening, right? I always feel like everybody wants to talk about, well, today the sky is blue, and everybody's like, yeah, today's the sky is blue. But I want to dive into stuff that nobody else wants to talk about. So we are talking specifically about your journey and about your book, which will answer a lot of these questions. But let's start with the first one, which is, what was the internal conflict that you ignored for so long? And what finally made it too painful for you to stay in your career as a financial planner?
Oh, that's a big one. I would say it's rooted in family. We have three children. So with the birth of the first two, I was still able to kind of manage my schedule and be that entrepreneur that was working 60 to 70 hours a week. But then when Grayson came along, who's our third, that became non-negotiable. So I had to be home more. And when I saw the wrestle between um, really my leadership journey in finance, where people were expecting me to forego being a family man in order to mentor, coach, and develop other people. I was like, no, that doesn't make sense to me. Like I didn't get into finance to be an entrepreneur to not control my schedule. So that was one. I would say two is just the general desire to manage money anymore. I just felt there was more to life for me than helping 150 wealthy humans. I thought there was just more. So,
I love it. What happens too is when we're making these transitions, we oftentimes, especially I know I do, I like to create systems. So when you were creating your, I'll say, transition, how did you come up with the framework for a successful transition?
hmm. I don't know if I actually was in control of that process. If I'm being quite honest. It got to a point where my health was actually dictating my reality. Like the stress, my blood pressure was high. Like there was a whisper in me that started to get much louder. And I got to a point where it's like this or not. And I had to make a decision.
A lot of times when I'm talking with entrepreneurs, they have these like financial readiness tools, and you come from this world where you're speaking to entrepreneurs all day. If you had to go back and give yourself your own lesson about being financially sustainable, what would you have done differently throughout your journey?
Oh, this one's easy for me in retrospect. So everything's going to take twice as much money and twice as much time. And my first entrepreneurial journey in finance for 18 years, I started out just me. I was a single guy, right? Like I just had to make sure I could feed myself and have minimum shelter. So you have some rose-colored glasses for the messy middle. Fast forward to starting the motion of gratitude, like then I was a family man. I have three children. We have major responsibilities. So in retrospect, probably needed twice as much money and twice as much time. And that reality can catch up to you. And then it creates urgency again.
Yep.
And then we lock back into urgency. And then we're like, oh man, been here, done this. Maybe I'll learn it next go around.
And I love that because when I'm coaching with my clients, we speak about burning daylight and understanding the concept of delegating and handling management and responsibility. And sometimes when you're so in the thick of it, it takes a life event such as what you've gone through, which was this transition, to recognize that you may have been in a position to do things a little differently, right? It's always the reflection. However, I think you would agree this is where our growth, and I call it sometimes chapter two, like this is what happens next. And we've learned from these. So when you were going through, and then I want to dive into more of the gratitude, when you were going through your transition, and this one is important, and I've gone through this, you are leaving one area where people know you, and your identity has been created in this one space. And now you have had a mindset shift. And I think that's really what it's about. Like your gratitude resonates with having this understanding and belief that there is something more, and having a mindset change is usually the first thing. When you're in it and you're going through those motions, and as we read in your book, you're saying like, I'm showing up every day, but am I really? And people know me in this one space, and now I have to walk away, and it was painful. During that journey, what do you think was the hardest part for you when you had to explain that you had different purpose?
Well, I think the the part of the entrepreneurial journey that people tend to leave out is the messy middle, right? It's the part of the story that we don't like talking about publicly. It's also the part of the story that shapes who we become. And when you talk to any entrepreneur, they tend to tell you the good stuff because it's easier to talk about. But the deeper your relationship goes with that entrepreneur, the more you get access to what they had to sacrifice to become who they are today. And for me, it was trusting certain people with that vulnerability that might not have served me. But as I fast forward today, like my circle gets smaller and tighter for who is allowed to know those very, very raw sides of me. That's part of protection mechanism, but it's also part of branding and what you're building, right? Uh, but a lot of the people I look up to are radically vulnerable. They teach people about the messy middle, and that is really cool. And most entrepreneurs underestimate what they're having to give up to achieve what they want. And there's this false reality that they think it's going to be easier than it is. And, the
That's
whole
why they
adage,
hire me. Yeah.
yeah, the whole adage, it's lonely at the top. It's lonely at the top because most people stop climbing. And what very few people recognize in real time is like when you start any ascent, like climbing Mount Timpanogos in Utah, it's 11,732 feet. At the bottom of that mountain, it's an easy hike.
Mhm.
The last half a mile is hard and scary. And so the closer we get to the top, the harder and scarier it gets. And we want to turn around sometimes, but we can't, but most do.
I love that. I call it with my clients giving access. Not everybody has access to you at all points in time when you're in this transition. When we speak about doing things, it sounds like you're doing them alone, but you're doing them in secret. You're hiding. You're no longer sharing everything that you're dealing with, and you're going to come out on the other side, and people are going to say, "When did that happen? What did I just miss?" And you go, "I was gone for a little bit." So let's dive into a little bit more of the book. And you're speaking about, this new journey of yours, and for you and for Shannon, your wife, became about gratitude. And let's talk a little bit about how did gratitude evolve, and the mindset tools and strategic business advantages. Like what did that help you? Like, did it help you have better results? Did it help you in leadership, clarity? You decide to have this mindset shift. There needs to be something at the other side. What was that for you?
Oh, that's a big one. So gratitude's been a part of my walk for as long as I can remember. My parents got divorced when I was 7, so I lived out of a backpack and a duffel bag for most of my youth, and I didn't mind at all. As long as I had what I needed in my backpack, I was a pretty happy kid. Um, but gratitude, where I really was confronted with gratitude was as a father, having little kids. And all of the tools that I was using were no longer working. Like I couldn't work out more. I couldn't make more money. I mean, I could, but that wasn't solving the problem. Um, so it just became this frustrating paradox. And gratitude is such a powerful frequency. And most people don't understand what we're talking about initially, but then once they get to know us, they do. So gratitude is not a soft skill. It's not a hashtag blessed idea. Gratitude is a survival skill. And people that have gone through very, very hard situations grasp onto very few things. Gratitude tends to be one of them. So when we're in the darkest of times, when we're all by ourselves, like it's a tool that is so predictable that it grounds us and roots us and helps us to remember. And that's why, like with our company, we wear bracelets and it's a very bright color because you're going to go throughout your day constantly. And the more access you're creating in your life, the more conflict resolution you'll have to be good at, or the more challenging things you'll face. So I wear this bracelet, and the color chartreuse is so relevant for me because every interaction I have every day is complex. It's designed that way because of what I'm building. So now gratitude anchors me in the present moment. And every time I get stuck in the past or spending too much time in the future, I waste a lot of energy. So gratitude locks you into the prefrontal cortex. That's why we made up the word kurtosis. That's why we want to have the first positive diagnosis in the world, because there's this magic sauce in the mind that was designed to do it that locks us into this moment. And gratitude is very predictable for that.
Yeah, and I love that. And a lot of times what happens is, you're married and you have 3 kids. And sometimes one spouse is on this journey and the other spouse is saying, "What are you doing? I'm lost in what's happening in your world." But you had a spouse, well, you have a spouse, Shannon, that was very supportive of all of your decisions, which says a lot about both of you as a couple. What recommendations would you give to other entrepreneurs that are feeling stuck and they don't know how to communicate with their spouse for them to understand where they're feeling and what decisions they're trying to make?
Hmm. I think about this a lot because Shannon and I come from two worlds. Like her parents celebrated 45 years of marriage this year, and my parents are on their third marriages. And I see the beauty in all of it, the happiness, the complexity, the messiness of being married for 45 years and also being on third marriages. The thing that I'm most confident in my relationship with Shannon is we started on the right foot. And although we were young, we just knew, like it was just part of it was the essence of who we were, that this is who we're supposed to be with. Now, living in Costa Rica for 5 months with our 3 kids, or living in an RV for months of 400 square feet with 3 little kids, the reason I'm so passionate about the work that I do now is because Shannon and I have battle tested our philosophy. We have put ourselves in some of the most challenging circumstances on purpose or by accident, and we always get out. And we get out with a smile on our faces. We hug, we laugh, we make fun of each other, we fight, but we fight efficiently. And if you're in business with your spouse, you have to learn to have that vocabulary. But I would challenge anyone who's in business with anyone, whether it's a partner, a spouse, a friend, if they don't navigate through skill sets, strengths, and weaknesses, how they operate their nervous systems. What do they do when they have a tantrum? Is this about them? Is it about you? Like you have to navigate all of these things in order to be in business with others. It's critical.
You're spending a lot of time right now trying to get your message out. Explain to our audience, not, you created this book and it was like a passion project, but because you're trying to spread awareness for what you are working on today. Explain to everybody who's watching a little bit about who you are now, what you're working on, what that vision is, so that others can learn from what you have paved the way?
Well, thank you for asking. So the motion of gratitude is the opposite of going through the motions. That's where the name comes from. The Anyone who's on autopilot should get off autopilot. And we all know what that feels like. Like we
Mhm.
drive to the office and we forgot how we got there. We're not meant to be on autopilot. But in society today, because there's so much distraction and disconnection, it happens by default, by accident.
Yeah.
So we want to help people get off autopilot. Like our tagline is feel the impact. It's dropping from the head back to the heart and then back to the hands, which is action. So philosophically, we know we should operate from our hearts, but it's head, heart, hands. Like that third step is critical. So for me right now in spreading my message is our goal is to have the first positive diagnosis in the world. Like it's a crazy idea. It's also a paradox that people are like pausing to be like, what are they saying? Am I being diagnosed with the problem, the solution? It's like, no, you're being diagnosed with the solution. In Western medicine or Western world, people are diagnosed with a problem every day and then they identify with the problem and it becomes who they are. And now it's like, I have this and therefore I am. And I want to teach people, you have this and therefore you are. I am grateful. I am living from my prefrontal cortex. I am managing my central nervous system. Teaching them that they are in control. When we are going through hard times, we are the problem and the solution. The how doesn't always make sense. So if we can manage the day to day of these core values, then we can be more patient with how it's going to work out. So how do I do that? Every week, I just work to keep 25 meetings and talk to as many humans as possible. And then I follow breadcrumbs, and certain people leave like loaves of bread, and other people leave like a little crumble. And either way, I'm following them.
How can our audience help you?
So the biggest thing is, I would say, if you want to read a book, even if you only read the first 3 pages, which is the vision, like what are we creating? An international movement to create the first positive diagnosis to shift the consciousness of humanity. So even if they just read the first chapter, which is vision is everything, that would mean the world to me. The other thing that means the world to me is like in 2026, like we want to help 40,000 people, 20,000 children, and 20,000 adults understand the science and the power of gratitude to be the bridge between perhaps spirituality and science. Like the brain is so cool. And with modern brain scans, we can prove to you that if you rewire your prefrontal cortex, you will default to what's going right and the world's happening for you and not to you. So what the audience can do is like look up the motion of gratitude or even Google today, what is the science of gratitude? Like let it validate the claims that I'm making and do your own rabbit hole research on it.
I love that. So, once again, we are speaking with my friend Matt, and he is the author of The Paradox of Having Your Shit Together. Yes, I did say that. Great human, great person for you to be following. Thank you, Matt, for sharing your powerful conversation. Your journey is a reminder that success is not just what we build, but it's who we become in the process. And to everyone listening, take today's insights and give yourself permission to just step into a life and a business that feels aligned, it feels intentional, and it feels meaningful. So until next time, stay tuned, stay focused, stay grateful, and stay in your purpose. Thank you, Matt, for joining us today.
Have a good day, everyone.